Hello.
What up?
Hello.
Are we live? Are we a podcast?
Is this on? Is this thing on? Hey, is
Hello?
that
We
on?
are
Hello?
here. We are live.
We are Always Strikes Last.
Welcome.
What year is it?
Welcome. Who am I?
Am
We
I
are
here?
in the nether times, good listeners, that week
Mhm.
between Christmas and New Year's when all time loses meaning and you just
Yep.
kind of do stuff.
Things happen and you're there.
It's apparently Friday today, although I have yet to see any real evidence of it.
Yeah,
I-
it's
The calendar tells me that, but I have a
Yeah.
really hard time believing it. For the next 2 weeks, it'll be like, are you sure, calendar? Are you sure?
it's so on point. I mean, I was mentioning to these fine gentlemen, kind of feeling like I'm in a Twilight Zone episode, and the hourglass grains of sand are slipping away until the first real day of work in the new year, where the cold light of an expectation and adult reality will hit me once again. But we're getting
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
January 2nd. It's looming.
Mhm.
For now, capitalism slowly grinds to a halt. The returns, the end of quarter.
Exactly. The great beast of commercialism sated on its meal.
Yes. It's glutted the world for another year, and as the sun revolves to its arbitrary point where we say, yes, this has been another one.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, good.
we're all looking back at what we've done this year, and I know I'm going to go on a diatribe, but first off, I want to say thank you to everybody who has listened to us this year. I
Yeah,
feel like
absolutely.
Absolutely on that.
we really appreciate the input, and we got some new Patreon subscribers, which if you want to subscribe, there will be a link somewhere around here.
Somewhere.
um
That's pointing.
Absolutely. Check the show
Yes.
notes.
This is a video format.
yes. And yeah, it's been a lot of so far a lot of
No, it's
fun
been
so
a
far. It's going to be pretty awesome in the coming year, I
it's
believe.
been a huge year. I mean, the number of people listening to this podcast has grown. It's at least doubled. It may have more pulled than that.
It's definitely booled, but
Yeah.
we
So
don't know where the bold is.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there
So
has been an expansion, we'll say that much.
and that's really awesome to see and very humbling. And thanks everybody for tuning in and listening to us. This is, we really enjoy making this, and we hope that you get something out of it too.
Absolutely. And really to jump in that bandwagon, we couldn't do it without you guys, and you're the ones that motivate us to try to have some fun content because we're like think we're having a conversation, all you out there.
Exactly.
maybe one day we
Um,
will.
Indeed. Oh,
Um, let's see. So yeah, so it's been a hell of a 2023, and we thought that we might go back and look at. I think we had an episode early in the year about what our goals were for the year. Now, none of us actually went back and listened to that episode, so someone else will have to go back and fact check us.
Yeah.
yeah. If you find an error, make sure to promote that heavily on social media and get all sorts of new people to listen to this podcast so they can laugh at us.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you could just comment on telling me how wrong I am. I enjoy it. I feed on it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a shortcut to the top. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, so 2023 retrospective.
Yeah,
Yes, there was
exactly.
a dimly remembered episode where we had some goals, or at least
Mhm.
the skeletons of goals. We tried to follow through on for the year. And maybe we can kind of kick things off here, but seeing what each of us had in mind back then, from what we can recall, and how we think we did on it. Miles, because you're wearing a red hat, most in line with your Dwarven army, arbitrary
Thank you.
reason, you should start.
Okay, I'll start.
Agree.
So let's see. It's been a pretty big year. What did we do? We played Nurgle for a good bit. We played Big Wa for a good bit. We joined the Irish team this year, so that was huge. Played at Worlds and played at Six Nations. So all in all, it's been, a really fantastic year for the wargaming. I'm trying to think my goals. What were my goals for the start of the year? I think it was to play more orcs, so I think I nailed that. I don't think I knew about the Nurgle that I was going to be playing Nurgle at the time that we recorded. If we'd recorded it in like a January, February type time slot, I don't think that was early or late enough for me to know that we were doing the Irish team even. So, yeah, it seems like forever ago. But play more orcs. So I did more orcs, so that part aced it.
Hmm.
And yeah, my instincts that Big Wah had some fire under the smoke, I think panned out, so that felt pretty good.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember
Hmm.
thinking about this time, I think early January I went to Warhammer World with some friends who were visiting, and we played in like a GT, and that was the first big event I was running Big Wah instead of just Iron Jaws. And I was like, there's something to this. And obviously, we've had a new GHB since then. And I think they've really come into their own with some of the new battle tactics that have come out for them. But uh, was excited to see that instinct sort of did eventually pan out. So that's very exciting. Um, Nurgle made a whole new Nurgle army. That was kind of unexpected. New year, new army. Um,
Probably one of the more beautiful armies I've seen too.
Oh, I
oh,
love
thanks,
the
man.
color
At
palette. Yeah.
some point, we got to go over how you made that and your decisions. I know we talked a little bit about it, and just the artists we were referencing.
Yeah.
Which, as soon as you came to me with that, I was just like, oh, we're going to the deep dark places of the art mind.
Exactly.
And you pulled out an army that I think is probably the most striking I've seen in a long time.
It's definitely
Um,
eye-catching, and
yeah,
that's I definitely get a lot of compliments. Not a lot of best painteds, but a lot of compliments. So I'll take what I can get.
What's that
Those
unique and
those
striking scheme? That's like
those paint judges out there, I need to figure out what your deal is and who I need to give my ten hard-earned dollars to, in a sly way.
to get things over the top, a
Exactly.
little
Whatever that
extra credit.
next
Yeah.
the next level is.
I mean, just
Um,
a comment on that though. I do think that your scheme was like a new kind of gross for Nurgle with it. Just one you haven't
mhm.
seen before, which you have to admit is exactly what Grandfather is going for with all of his typical plague nursing and all that.
yeah.
Pretty much a pure devotee in that moment when you decided on
Yeah.
that.
No, thank you. And I remember we were at a guy named Kian was having his stag party this year, and it was a Warhammer themed weekend. And so he had us line up all of our armies, and he was like, and what's the narrative of your army? I was like, oh crap, we had a narrative. I forgot about that.
Neon death metal.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, we're trying to appeal to the young kids. You know, it's tough being a Nurgle recruiter out there, and really want to get to these kids early before they have a chance to choose one of the other Chaos gods. You know?
Like a crayon, but somehow waxier, both in color and feel.
Exactly.
You are right. They are like the LA Gears of Warhammer, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, what else did we do? We dabbled in some KO. That was cool. Played them for a little bit. Played some OBR. I definitely remember doing an episode where I said I was going to be playing more OBR. That did not end up panning out.
Well, that was in the middle of your journey to figure out like what you were going to play. I think it was Six Nations, right? You were like trying to
Hmm.
pin that down. I think you had a pretty brief KO phase because I think that's when you and I played and I was visiting, right? We had that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it was good. I never quite got to the build that ended up becoming the build. Right? There's sort of two archetype builds of KO right now where there's
Hmm.
a bunch of Thunderers in a small number of boats, possibly including an Ironclad if you want to go if you want the big block.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then there's the two frigates and a bunch of Endrin riggers. build, and I never quite got that build off the ground before I had to sort of pivot. So I'm excited to go back. Was able to get all of my bits out of your basement, Jack. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
exciting, including a bunch of flight stands from the Magnet Baron, which I had been.
Key, very
Those are
key.
hard to get over here. Those are like worth their weight in gold. So very excited to be able to finish my second frigate so I can actually try out those builds.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's in the future for you. I didn't think you left too much in my basement now. I mean, just a whole Bretonian army,
Oh my
fortunate
God.
dwarves.
If we'll have a spin-off podcast for the old world. That'll be
Definitely that's coming.
2024.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Fantasy strikes last.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
exactly. Or Strikes Last Fantasy, which is maybe a different podcast, but okay, we'll get there.
How about you, Matt? What was your 2023 goals?
I really don't remember what I set out to do, to be honest. I think it was still to have fun. Um,
That's good.
Did you
Did
have
that work
fun?
out?
for the most part, yeah. I have what can only be said as an impressive pile of shame that I got through quite a bit.
Nice.
Ran a couple tournaments and um, you know, played armies that made me feel uncomfortable that were my playstyle. Early on, I know I was running Skaven, which no cavalry in that army whatsoever was an
Sure.
extreme. I learned how to play an Alpha Strike army, the advantages and disadvantages of that.
Yep.
So that's way outside of my wheelhouse, as well as work on building up the armies and figuring out what I actually wanted to play. I think at one point I was talking about playing Dragon Ogres, and then I forgot and played Oops all Orc on Pork.
Yeah. I was
So
gonna
that
say
happened.
if you hadn't gotten to it, I was gonna bring up the orc on pork. So
Oh, jeez, that was like a watershed moment in Zany armies. It's still one of my favorite things you did.
Yep, and
This year.
we've found out that it's probably not the best army to play, but it is the most fun thing to yell at your opponent while you're playing.
there we go.
So, so we've got another couple of armies to go through. Yeah. What else? What
You've
else?
been
What else?
prodigious in your output, I think, Matt. I mean, it seems like there's a lot on that table.
Oh, there's always a lot on that table. I've got my like little painting desk to the right of my work desk, and that always ends up being like four different armies in one spot, because the hobby ADHD is real. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I did get done was take all the lists that I wanted and started honing in on them, as opposed to the year before of just randomly throwing things at a wall just because they're memey. Um,
Sure.
so it was a nice resting year as far as playing competitively goes, but it really helped to get me back into the hobby part of the hobby, or the hobby part of the hobby. Would that be
Mhm.
right?
Sure.
Yeah, hobby part of the hobby. I
I'm
need
picking
more
up what you're
caffeine.
putting down.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, within that word salad, there's a pretty good meal.
yeah.
There's
So
something.
getting back to practicing better painting techniques and going back to doing details on things that need details instead of, no, this is fine. One day I will actually be able to post in the final product area of our Discord.
Oh
One
yeah.
I
day coming
I feel like
soon.
that part of the Discord really has a philosophical divide, right? There's the people who are like, um, yeah, it's done because I said it was done, versus the
Hmm.
people who are like, nothing's ever really done. It's just abandoned or whatever the
Yep.
George Lucas quote is.
And
Uh,
I'm
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
firmly on that other side of, but is it really done?
yeah,
Have I finished this in its entirety? Are all the I's dotted? Are all the
yeah,
T's crossed?
I guess finished product submissions in the eye of the beholder. I'm definitely in the done enough camp. We're
yeah.
moving on to the
I
next project.
I have no further plans to improve this in any way.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a varnish eventually when the weather's nice, but that's always
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that should be the thing we set for it, right? Um, Once you varnished it, then you can put it there. Until
Yeah.
then, no.
Oh, my friend
Yeah.
Don would used to give me the hardest time because I wouldn't finish painting the rims before I posted like, yeah, the model's pretty much done, you know. And he's like, ah, but the rim's not painted.
I'm
It's essential.
I'm with Don in this one. I mean, Don and
Yeah.
I are both fans of a good rim job. So
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sure you get
exactly.
that.
Kind of
Sorry.
had to be done. We know Slanesh.
They
Slanesh.
like
Yeah, yeah.
so that devotee never misses an opportunity.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But that has been a really good, you know, it's like, okay, that's so for me, when you paint the rim and you do the varnish, that's it. Now you can go touch it up later, as we've
Yeah.
mentioned, but this is me signaling to myself that no, this hit, we're over the line.
That's exactly it. I give
See,
a wide amount of like time for like you can end up doing the varnish later because obviously humidity and weather conditions
Hmm.
permitting. But like if you are saying this is varnish ready when the time is right, then you're good. Then you've shipped it.
Yeah.
It's out the door.
see, I like that whole composition, even with the rim painted. Like to me, the rim is part of the paint job because it sets up the base, and then
Sure.
that means that you have to balance the color of the rim, and you can see exactly why I never put anything in the finished product area because I'm like, oh man, I put the rim, then I got to go back and get this, then I got to do
That's
that.
pretty fair. It's probably like a somewhat dry but interesting, sort of maybe interesting side topic at some point we could explore about like the rim orthodoxy versus like, the new school. Because some people are like there's only one color for the rims. It's like black or brown, that's it.
Mhm.
Some people put all sorts of weird colors on there. And I'm like, as an
Well,
orthodox rim person, I'm like, what the that's all right.
unit differentiation is a big one, right? Instead of having to get those
Yes,
little
that's
fancy
true.
clips to stick on your models to let you know what they are, you can put an obnoxious neon orange on, an entirely painted black unit, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't know.
That doesn't send me into an eye twitch at all.
I don't know.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure when James workshop descended from his mountain to give whatever sort of biblical like commandments to the coffee community, one of them was clear on this. Which direction? That's for debate later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in the before times, most of the base rims were goblin green,
Yeah,
and
because it
uh,
matched the grass, you see.
yeah, exactly,
Indeed.
exactly.
That was the first orthodoxy. I remember that. I did that for so many models back in the old world days. Called that.
No,
The
exactly.
days when flock ruled our lives.
Yeah, that was the height of basing. Just like put some glue on it, you dip it in this colored sawdust. You must be a modeling expert.
Yeah.
If you really want to live in a lap of luxury, throw a little shade on that. Give it a little highlight.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So true, so true. Well, I guess if we're talking years in review, my goals were, I think, relatively straightforward. I think if I'm remembering correctly, I set out to do exactly one-ish things, and that was to move on with my sort of, grand Alliance of Chaos, like Grand Host of Sinesh kind of theme, and then play, having done the Hedonites before, do the Slaves to Darkness and try to do a Slaves to Darkness here. I think
Mhm.
my ambition was to paint enough of an army to play it, hopefully play it well, and get 5 games under my belt to try to, do some like ITC tournament fun, as time would allow. I did
Sure.
do that. I did do that. Over the course of the year, I managed to sort of paint up, enough units and then sort of inherit slash assemble slash aggregate some other units to have a truly massive Chaos Horde now.
Nice.
And I did end up going to, the requisite 5 tournaments. Real fun. I had some good successes with them, won one, did well in a bunch of them, did okay in some others. Ended up if I play nothing else, looks like I'm around 15th for the slaves, which isn't like, taking it, but not bad.
In
Out of
ITC points?
yeah. Just
15th
shy
out
of
of,
15th out of, I'm looking at it now, 477. So
I'd say
played some
that's pretty
chaos.
good. I'd say that's
Played some
pretty good.
chaos.
I
Yeah.
should look up where I landed because I only have the one tournament in the official ITC
Like
world.
the one shot, one kill, Sons of Bahamut Ringer. Who is this? Miles Benjamin.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it was honestly a lot of fun. I had such a journey with it. I mean, because my modest goals of getting stuff painted on time at the very beginning, when we got into January last year, were sort of inhibited by my trip to Taiwan because I was over there visiting family. And I was there for like a good 3 weeks. And all I could do hobby wise was listen to podcasts, check Discord, or go on eBay and go increasingly down a rabbit hole to buy older and older like Chaos Champion models, which is how I got this really sweet collection of like 80s Chaos Lords, going for myself.
Hell
But
yeah.
yeah, I came out of that and came back and was like right in the painting train to get my chosen done and get some other stuff ready to go play, and then had a blast throughout the year. Hobby wise, to go along with that, I give myself like a solid B. Like I don't think I lit up the world in the same way you did, Miles, turning through so many units, or you, Matt, for sure. But I got a few things done. I managed to, paint up those chosen. I touched up a number of units. I did a couple of units of Furies. Managed to kind of rehabilitate a number of almost done units into tabletop ready state, from the inherited, basement chaos that Miles pushed my way eventually in his grand generosity. I don't know what else I really spent a ton of time on. Well, I guess the Therodons, my synthwave Therodons, they're blue spike tips, they're blue and white spike tip hair.
Very beautiful Therodons.
Thank you. So Slaneshi. Maybe I got some chaos champions in there as well, but it was a fun year for getting some gaming down for sure. But yeah, I think I managed to do exactly what I set out to with that, so I was happy there. It was a journey for any number of reasons, but this was a check mark.
Nice.
Okay, I looked it up. I am
Yes.
currently 52nd of Sons of Bahamut players.
Yep.
Exactly one event. Uh,
How many Sons of
Well
Bahamut
done.
players are there, Miles?
there are 208 officially on ITC this year, and I am 7th among people who just have one event under their belt.
That's not too bad. Just
So
came on in. We're hot.
basically, third place.
Yeah, I think, call this a W. Call this a W. Oh man, that's
I miss these stats. Like, we don't do them over here. We have our own stats, but it's not as the granularity isn't there, right? There's not enough people to warrant the level of granularity you get in the ITC rankings. And it's just funny to go in and find like, okay, but like what weird pocket criteria am I first place in? You know, you know what I mean?
It is honestly very fun because that's like what allows you to eke some enjoyment out of the game and feel like a little competitive, even if you're not dedicating your every aspect of your life to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's pretty good. I wish they would have that kind of university though, Miles. I think it's a real shame that like all the other regions don't have some common ranking system that all the points can just feed into, because we're not that far from having like chess rankings in like a looser way, in like the fun way with this stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Although, yeah, we had a big discussion on the Irish community chat about ELO rankings, and ELO rankings provide that everybody is playing like they cannot possibly take into account matchup dependency. So like if like let's say Matt was a really good player and I was a really poor player, but I just happened to have the snake to Matt's mongoose or whatever, however that analogy works.
Yeah.
Like the ELO math can't take into account. Anyway, it's a long rabbit hole.
Oh, that's true, and that's a whole separate thing about like statistically significant like rankings of the ELO stuff. But I think even like the baby step of just getting everyone's points from whatever app they're using to feed into the same central repository of like, you get this many points we've agreed you get for winning a tournament of this side, like something like that would be enough to say, I can see that someone really cool in Sweden is kicking butt, and now it means
exactly.
whatever. And they could break it up by region like they kind of do, like North America, Europe, whatever, just have one extra level. But Imagine the gold belt you'd get if you were able to be like the giant player for the world, and that was like
Right.
against everyone.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Um,
I also kind of wish that we could get back to the original horribly made website that would show the ITC rankings instead of that embedded iframe web
oh
app that they
yeah,
put
no, it
in.
is kind
Because
of
oh
annoying.
my goodness, ITC, you kill me.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
Well,
even really check anymore.
there's a bit of a push going on around here to move to stats and ladders, which is still in beta, but it's
Cool.
it's different,
Indeed,
Nice.
indeed.
you know.
Well, I'll be happy as long as one of these stays healthy. They all stay healthy,
Yeah,
and we can all do this kind of thing. But it'd be cool to see if they start doing that next year, Miles, with the how that shakes out. If it's going to be something you see in the Irish community, the English community, and all that.
exactly. Let me check out. I didn't finish very well for the Irish stats this year. Um,
Yeah, that's another thing too, right? Do you put in your team's games for those stats? Because half the
no,
time,
those don't count.
gotcha.
Um, yeah, so it's just here we go, the All Ireland Masters. So in All Ireland, I was 29th for the purposes
Nice.
of the Masters, which is going to be the top eight, and it's coming up next week. So I did not make the top eight. Oh well.
You'll be a cheerleader from
Next
the
year.
sidelines.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we'll get it. We'll get it next year. Well,
Yeah,
speaking of that, guys, should we switch to 2024 predictions? Maybe initial things we're working on, or some fun stuff, or whatever we want to talk about.
sure. What is everybody what's not knowing what's going to happen, obviously, because it's the future. What is everyone's tentative game hobby plan for 2024?
Yeah, let's do that. Let me add one in there too. Let's have it
Yeah.
everyone's game hobby plan for 2024, and then also a spicy prediction for 2024 because there's a lot
Okay,
going on,
nice.
and I think
Nice.
we
Okay.
can see how accurate we are once the time comes. All right, so
Cool.
who wants to go first?
Looks like you, Jay.
I
You
am
gonna do
talking.
it?
I'm good at talking. Let's do
You
this
gonna
more.
do it? Gonna do it? Gonna do it.
All right. All right. So I guess for hobby plan, I am kind of a sort of a crossroads of a couple different things, but what I think I've settled on is presuming I can still manage to make it to enough tournaments for that to be worthwhile, and have some fun, which I think I should be able to, just with some coordinating with my lovely wife and schedule and all that. I think I'm going to keep playing the Slaves to Darkness for this season. Just having fun with them because now I got more models and variations to try out and things that are neat I haven't had a chance to do yet on the tabletop. And now with experience in my belt, some things maybe even to refine. So that'll be kind of my default because they're painted. I don't have to rush, and if events come up, I can have a good time with that. That's my like gaming hobby start. But I do have a spicy hobby project to go along with the inevitable painting of
Ooh.
additional units or Vanguard, work that I have to do for those, or Splinter Foundry or whatever. And that is a little palette cleanser side project for a Path to Glory here, where I'm going to probably paint up a 2,000 point FEC army, which makes me totally unique. No one else is doing that right now.
Not at
Pretty much
all.
pretty much an innovator. I
I
was
don't know
Yeah.
even
why
accused.
you're doing
Yeah.
that. It's like a complete waste of time. They haven't gotten anything new in forever.
Exactly, exactly. Charles from our Discord and our friend, did accuse me of mirror copying him because I could do that. But in my defense, one, for FEC, everyone's doing it, and for Hedonites, I was the OG there. I think we just have to look at the timeline.
I mean, he'll beg to differ because the only timeline for CJ is CJ's timeline, I believe. If we
Oh,
look back at his timeline, it's only his timeline.
is it the true or the master timeline? The true timeline? Is this the whole subject of Loki, the series?
Yeah, exactly. There's a sacred timeline.
But all joking aside, yeah, I think I'm on the bandwagon with FEC for fun. But I've kind of come up with a hobby concept I want to play out with it, and I'm really kind of excited about it. So obviously they're all diluted, but I know that I want to go to Shorin whenever he comes out. So I built kind of an eventual 2K around him, and I started with that FOMO box. So I got that, have 20 ghouls, most of it's assembled, and my plan is to have their delusion and all their nightly errantry be very much around sort of being kind of in like this flower-filled, beautiful sort of chivalric kingdom. So they're going to call it the Court of Flowers. And that's going to take the form of very eye-popping bases.
Nice. I
So
feel
they're not
like
wrong about that.
getting some like imagery from like Midsommar or some one of those, sort of creepy Scandinavian horror films, would be you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
something like that, like take like the scary but it's bright, that kind of idea. Infuse it
Exactly.
art there, and I'm definitely going to do some of that and all the basing and some of that. But of course, I'm going to make it contrast to the ghouls themselves. I
Yeah.
think they're all knights and ladies, but are very scary, gross, mordants. And I'm going to do a Gazenethal thing, I think, where I'm going to do the
Mm.
basic one where you undercut everything black, you do a 45-degree pretty heavily with like gray sear, then you do like a top down or a 20-degree fairly heavily with, Corax white, and then do contrast and highlights and the whole 9 yards. Probably make them pretty bloody and gross looking so they can sit, as quite the foil to the environment they're in.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll see. But that's my little hobby palette cleanser project. That's what I'm starting off with for 2024.
Nice.
I like the idea of having a good, you have I have so many existing armies. I'm sure everybody, we all do, but at this point, if so many armies that have hit a critical mass, and I do have, little things to add to each one, like um, a unit here, an extra hero there, or whatever comes
Mhm.
out, but also just having that like slow burn hobby army where it's like I have no pressure to ever get this done. I
Yeah.
can take
Yeah.
my time and just like uh paint it some obnoxious way that I wouldn't ever bother with otherwise because there'd be some tournament that I'd have to rush for, or
Mhm.
whatever.
Exactly. I'd be pressured or you'd be pressured to be like, get 2 units done in 2 weeks because we want to feel this thing we thought of. And
Yeah,
we do that enough in other things.
exactly. Matt, do you
Yeah.
want to go next?
Sure. Yeah. I have kind of already started. I'm gonna go back and start playing competitively this year. And the goal
Okay.
Nice.
is to average 4-1s more often than not. It's a
Nice.
lofty goal,
Very
but
cool. Very
So
good.
that's why it's a goal.
that's
Yeah.
why it's a goal.
That's not a
S-
show up and just ease into it. That's a real one.
yep. So practice games at least once a week. Um, Keeping that rolling. And then I have pulled out the anti ADHD card and said, look, you got to pick from three armies, good sir. Just pick from three. You have a
Okay.
lot, just pick three. And it doesn't have to be as crazy as you want it to be. You don't have to run all Scav and Eshin. Just pick
Doesn't
three.
doesn't have to be the unique flower army that people say how cool and innovative and then
Yep.
doesn't perform because of
Yep.
practice or all of not being as strong.
No fedoras or twirling mustaches for me.
Oh,
No hipster armies. So the
So
goal
fun
again
though.
is 4-1, get down to three. Make sure to practice only with those three in any setting that I can, and make sure that I am getting them up to the best tabletop standards. So that way, if I do want the variation, I have three different armies to choose from. Um, and each of those I'm going to essentially put the best of my ability in all aspects of it. So not only painting, but scoring, knowing the army in and out, getting as many practice games in as possible, um, and then display boards independently for
oh,
each.
nice. Very nice.
So
Oh
Very
yeah,
nice.
yeah, good call on that. Good call on that.
so yeah, so trying to take it as far as I can. It's been long enough of just sitting on the sidelines having fun-ish, as fun as Orc on Pork are. Once you
And
show
they're
up to
very
the
fun.
tables,
Just for the record, for everybody at home, they're
yeah, they're
very fun.
super fun. They're super fun. It was like the easiest army to paint and play. Because you knew exactly what you couldn't do, and the couldn't do pile is much larger than the could do. So, uh, you
Oh
know,
my God. That's fair.
really, really going to enjoy the competitive aspect of the hobby, and that also kind of goes into the next thing, which is run more RTTs. especially in my area, RTTs have kind of become a little bit few and far between, and I find those are always I wouldn't say more fun, but they tend to have the effect of nurturing uh, community in the
Yeah.
area.
No, exactly.
That's
And
very fair. Yeah.
so going to start running more RTTs. Oh, I forgot even one of the accomplishments of this last year was making terrain. I made terrain in about a month for GT,
Awesome.
which was insane. So now we're going to put that to good use. And yeah, RTTs, run them, and then play competitively.
No, that's
Awesome.
you're
Awesome.
absolutely right, Matt, that you got to have level, events at all levels in order to keep, right? Like one of the things I've been pushing with the Irish team as like something that I think we should be focusing on, and I think people agree with me, um, is like we gotta not only do we need to feel a competent team, but it's also should be our job to foster the community and try and expand like as much as because we want to have all of us players should be aiming to replace ourselves at some level.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it'd be good if we had to fight for our spots every year, as opposed to being, well, it's the 8 guys who went last year. You know,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that depth
Um,
of bench is not only healthy, but good for the game, good for the community. To feel like
exactly.
it's not just like the 9 people who like to play Warhammer in the country.
Yep.
But and that's so there's a bunch of different groups. There's the people who have only thought about playing, the people who play occasionally, the people who will play at a local event, the people who will travel to an event somewhere else, and the people who play at some, let's say, Team Ireland, play for Team Ireland, so like all, and you need to grow every single group. Otherwise, the whole pipeline doesn't work, you
Mhm.
know?
Yep.
Exactly.
It can send things in disarray without it. And
Yeah.
every once in a while it's nice to just have a lighthearted, semi-competitive game and have other people show up.
Yeah,
GTs can
exactly.
get a little excessive. So but yeah, that's my goal. Which you got going on?
Let's see. I'm kind of I'm kind of spoiled for choices right now in terms of armies. I feel like I've got I've got a good backlog for a bunch of different forces. So, um I've got plenty of more orcs to work on. I'd love to spend some time working on the Cruel Boys and playing Cruel Boys. One thing I found in playing Big Wa, there's sort of there are some key pieces that every Big Wa list has, more or less. It's like Wargog Prophet and Gobsprak and, some more Chantas. And then after that, it's kind of dealer's choice as to how you want to get the army together. And I tend to lean really heavily on the Iron Jaws side because that's the side I'm familiar with and that's the side I have the most models for. And so it'd be really interesting to me to play Cruel Boys for a little bit to get some appreciation for what those units do. So that when I bring it all back together, I have a much more holistic view of the army. That'd be really interesting. Um, there's that whole fun new Nurgle build that's come out. That's a very sort of monster mash with control plague bearers. Um,
Mhm.
that's been very popular recently. I got one test game in with that. It has some promise. I need a lot more plague bearers. Um, and I need to track down another Magath Lord because I don't think anyway. But
Do
so
you
there's
do you
there's
have one
there's
Magath
some
Lord, Miles? I didn't think you
I've
had a
got the
Magath Lord.
one.
Oh,
I've got Blob. But people also tend to run Ogrots is the
yeah.
other guy.
Blob is
I
the
can't
coolest
remember.
though.
And
Oh,
then Morbidex is the third one. That sounds right. Okay.
he's the one who looks like a big nerdling on his thing, right?
Yes. Yeah, it
There's
was Ogrots is
Thriceborn.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I always pick
Um
third.
But Ogratz is the combat one, so he's the one who's actually, so he's sort of the bully. Whereas Blow Up is good, but he's some of his points go towards him being a mediocre wizard with a really good signature spell and not his fighting ability. You know what I mean?
That's fair though. He's so many good little abilities on him, like his like aura of -1 to hit flies, his
Yeah,
his shooting attack's not bad. His, as you said, spell is kind of amazing for combo play.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he is the best model because like that projectile vomit coming off of
No,
that thing.
I remember showing the kit to Julia and she like sighs. She's like, "Ah, you're making the one that's actively puking, aren't you?"
And you're like, yes,
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 I
exactly.
am.
You nailed
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Although I don't understand how one of them is named like Demon Spew and he's not the one that's actively puking.
It's like when your identity is stolen by your brother. Like, and
Right,
maybe the
yeah.
parents like, this is actually good though. I mean,
Yeah.
just pause here for a second because one of the problems I think that Age of Sigmar and a lot of Games Workshop games have in general is that people always end up being named exactly what they do, what their signature thing is. Like, I don't know why Karn Blood Axe or whatever, was born, went through childhood, ended up holding a bloody axe. Like, that's some straight
That's some
line
prophetic naming. Yeah,
predestination. Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Bloodaxe will be so proud.
Yeah, exactly. It's or it's just like, glorious golden paladin silvermane. Oh, I guess you're probably going to be after you die eventually some kind of stormcast. Good for you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I think it's nice to see a character who didn't really get the memo. Overguy's Demon Spew?
Exactly.
Nope. This is his brother.
Exactly.
It's just a nod to, Zinch just to keep him thinking he may have some sway over some of his stuff.
There we go.
His changer of ways, yes.
Um, but so in addition to those two armies, like I said, I finally have all the bits to keep going in KO. I feel like that'd be a fun, getting into that combat build because I was definitely struggling with the sit back and pick them off, build. That's the Thunderers, where you really can't engage and you're kind of jumping around being cagey. You
Mhm.
should be able to get a consistent close win every time. If you're just very cagey about it 100% of the time. But I'm finding that kind of play style isn't gelling with me as much as I thought it would. So
Yeah, that's totally
be
fair.
be good to try the other one. And then yeah, just to keep going, keep rattling off the list here. Got those giants from Jack's basement. I do
Yeah.
need two more megas. Because I need a King Broad and a Gatebreaker, and then they'll be back in business. So that seems like maybe something I ought to look at. And finally, picked up all of the um, ancient and metal venerable cities of Sigmar dwarfs as well. So
Ah.
Which you can
so
play in the old world, probably, I
yeah.
guess.
Well, no, well, I can play it in cities of Sigmar.
Yeah,
You
that's a
know,
choice.
Yeah,
uh,
they're pretty decent in Cities of Sigmar.
I
I
hear
think
they're in the books.
Slowest unit in the world.
we get
They're definitely
gyrocopters though.
like they are
Have you-
definitely top three racial factions within
Yeah,
the cities
in
of
cities of
Sigmar.
Sigmar. Yeah, no, and that'd be mostly just for fun, yeah, because it was fun looking at those old models again. A lot, but what are you gonna do?
But
Um,
those are from the old days, Miles. I mean, pre the moment. At least I
yeah,
think of it as the moment where, way back in the day, painting was sort of like always trying to make it perfect. It took forever. We're not,
yeah,
and maybe these are from your childhood too. So like, that's a whole different ball game. But I remember there was that inflection point when we figured out like just finishing it and getting the table to not be
yeah.
stuck forever in this cycle. That was
I'm
a
never gonna
thing.
get there. I'm never gonna
I
get there.
Man, you
No,
somehow still paint armies though, but prior to that, I don't think Miles and I were consistently able to churn out full like things we could play with, and that changed it.
Mm.
no. I remember several whole armies where you could tell which models I painted earlier and which models I painted later. Because my
Mhm.
technique, drastically improved from the beginning to the end.
And it was such a time scale on it too, right? Because that wasn't like 2
Exactly.
months. That was like you weren't like getting 1,000 points ready for a game. You're like, I painted this unit, and then 3 years later got to this one, and then most of the time it was gray plastic.
Yeah, and Space Wolf Gray has changed twice since then. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny.
But yeah, so really, so many options. I don't know what we're gonna do. Hopefully, we're gearing up for Worlds again this year, which is gonna be um in late June. I think it's end of June. So that'll be right before a spicy edition change. So that'll be very exciting.
That's very true. It's gonna be an interesting year all around for that. Well, maybe now it's time to switch to predictions, isn't it? Predictions and
Indeed.
observations. Yeah. But
Um, Spicy edition things. Do we think, looking at what's happening in the grim darkness of the far future, do we think attaching heroes to units is going to be a thing in new Age of Sigmar? Would you like it? Would you hate it?
that's an interesting thing. And before we dive into the topic, is that your prediction? You're gonna say, "Yep, chips down. That's what's gonna happen," or are you thinking,
I don't know. On one hand, it seems to be working out for them, which is cool.
hmm
And I also like that the two games have sort of differentiated a little bit.
hmm hmm
Having said that, that's not been the design trend that they've been going with for the past, like 4 or 5 years. The two games have been oddly mirroring each other pretty tightly.
Yeah, they'll use one to experiment and they'll double down if they like it. The
Exactly.
double turn 40K is yet to happen. We'll still see.
Someday. They don't
Those
even
way
know
better.
they won't know what hit them.
They
Yeah.
live in a predictable clockwork universe over there. But all
Yes.
right. I think that maybe if that is a prediction, it did happen, it wouldn't be the worst thing. I like that mechanic. I like the idea of sticking like a unit champion or something in a unit and like and changing its function somehow or giving it like an enhancement. It's kind of
Mhm.
neat. And I think that would give a lot of play to some of those foot heroes who right now are kind of don't do anything because they're bad duelists.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're a bad duelist and their buff is mediocre.
Yeah. So
I think
we'll see.
I think if we see that, we'll see indexes then for AoS,
Yeah.
which was it the Auric Warclans one that came out, that little kind of almost indice,
hmm
um, was a possible portent of what's to come.
hmm
But I don't know. I feel like while that would be interesting, it would almost kind of reduce the interplay that you could have with some of them. It would make a lot of things very odd. Allying in individual heroes, how would that work with
Sure.
unit buffs? I hope we almost see just like a tightening of the rules, like a eighth to ninth edition of 40K style.
hmm
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's not so much a
Um,
Sure.
sea change or massive redesign. It's like a refinement.
or like a third to fourth if you're an old person like us. Third
Yeah.
to fourth edition of 40K, where it's just, oh yeah, here's some things that needed some tweaking, but you can still use the same books.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
a
Do
fair point.
do you
I
guys
think
think we'll get indexes? We haven't gotten indexes yet, you
I
know?
hope not. I honestly, and this is my biggest hope, is if we still remain the test bed, give us books that are entirely lore, and let us give you money for the application so that we can get our rules digital fully released.
Oh, subscription based or not subscription necessarily, but digital purchases. I honestly would love digital purchases for app codes. I would pay next to full price for just the code in many cases.
Yep. And
Yeah.
and like I would love to see that. We'd be the perfect test bed for it.
Yeah,
But that's not really the rules, right? That's more just the application of. I think what we'd probably see is, because I hear it in almost every tournament, is a little bit more defined terrain rules. That's
sure.
probably what we'll get. Um,
hmm
there's a lot of weird interplay with garrisons still, which
Yep.
you know I could see that being tightened up. But
I really
honestly, Oh, go
I
ahead.
would say I really enjoyed we had the fixed maps for Six Nations, which I really enjoyed. We got a lot of play out of them. We're still
Mhm.
using them because they're so useful. And then I got to experience when I was in Boston, the Nova maps that were being used out there, which are fixed locations for terrain, but then what they are, and then and fixed contents, but you still one player still arranges them,
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
in
you know.
Scriptmas, we took that one step further and then just actually mirrored the dice on
Okay.
each terrain or each piece of terrain, and those were all placed. And that worked out really well. After we got through, excuse me,
Yeah, yeah.
after we got through the first game, took a little critique and feedback, then started placing terrain a little bit more aggressively. Found that it actually had a lot of impact on the game, but it wasn't in a detrimental way. In the place where it was a detrimental way, the players found that it was a lot more fun because it was making them have to make decisions that they normally would just be like, oh, well, I already put a ward and all that, blah 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 blah
Yeah,
blah.
yeah.
Right. So I'm looking forward to using that kind of template for terrain and tournaments moving forward. I think it standardizes the board and removes that problem of the one dice roll in the game that can actually cost you, which is
Sure.
attacker or defender, right? So
Yep.
yeah, moving forward, I would love to see standardized terrain rules come in a little bit more, but nothing we can't work with or without. I
Sure.
would love to see this edition just kind of built upon, because I think it's in a good place with the combination of general's handbooks, like continually feeling like it's changing the not the core rules of the game, but it changes the
Yeah.
game so dramatically each time a new general's handbook comes out
It,
that
it's
the
it's
game doesn't
true.
feel stale.
It manages to freshen it up without like going through all the drastic hullabaloo of a full like re-release and everything. So there's
Yeah.
something to that thought, man. Well, I'll throw my spicy prediction out there. I tend to agree with a lot of the sentiment you guys are putting down, so I won't go rehash those. We do, of course, have an edition update, so it's going to come out with a box.
Ooh.
Here's my prediction. I think we're going to see whatever Malarian's faction is come out with that box and be in that box.
Oh.
Malaria
The,
elves,
the Umbral Elves or whatever they were called.
Yeah, Umbral Elves or Shadow Demons
it's
or like whatever they are.
Umberneth, Umberneth.
Umbreneth, yeah.
Umbreneth. There we go.
I could totally see that happening and that this could be like the summer FEC.
This
Yeah,
so if we're following the pattern so far is that it's always Stormcast versus one of the other alliances. And so this
Yep,
would be we either go back to chaos, right? Because it's a
yep.
cycle of three, or if it's a cycle of four, then it's order on order for fourth edition.
which that would work with Umberneth. Um,
Yeah.
but
Because order needs another faction, but yeah.
the one
We don't
thing we
even know what they're gonna do.
probably see is the updated Liberators, most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could
They do
imagine
love to
that.
do that. They do love to update their Stormcasts. Well,
Hmm.
it'd be funny. Well, let's say, I mean, if it was going to be like a Shadow Elves thing, maybe it'd be a Civil War, maybe it'd be a Light Elves versus Shadow Elves thing, and this would be the reason Slanesh breaks free from the prison because it's actually a fight from the two dualities. They're not cooperating.
Yeah, and then we'll actually get a mounted Slanesh player, and the army will feel whole. Finally.
This is good. I'm gonna lie right now that if Umbral Elves come out, I can't not buy those. So that's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Says the man with whatever 12,000 points of dark elves on square
I
bases in
had
a box.
12,000 points of like mostly painted Dark Elves and more beyond that. And they live in this uncanny valley where, some of them would become a Daughters of Cain army, and some of them I could rebase and do like very, very large cities of Sigmar elf army. And some I could just play in the old world and say, you know what, these are high elves, and I have a whole army already painted done.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
This is the high elf yeah, like night fight armor.
These are the edge elves. This is from that
Right,
province.
Edgelord elves.
Yeah. The edge lords of the province of the far rim of Oldwood.
There's still elves, but you know, this is for when they're doing covert operations.
Yeah, every once in a while, like an emissary comes over from like Lothar and says, "Look, you guys have too much of a bad vibe here. This isn't in keeping. What is this spike? Why is that there?"
So in that note, I do gotta ask, what would we like to see? We've just talked about what we think we'll see. What would we like to see? I'll start off. I
Okay.
want to see an entirely new faction again. We've gotten all of we're almost, well, once we get Umbrenath and we get our wood elf versions, you know, with the deer hoofs.
Mm-hmm.
Claps. We've gone through all the old world factions that people love, right? I want to see what else we can get. Some new type of army. Like
That's true.
maybe what is it, the silent people?
You mean like
The
those
bug
insects who
people?
live under the mountain?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that's a cool one.
Or I mean, you know, some Famir. You could make my Famir army legal again, Games Workshop, please.
Yeah.
My entire Famir, please. You can
Okay,
do
nice ask there.
that.
This is a fun thing. The wants of new factions. I'll throw a couple in. Two I would love to see. One, and I'm not even gonna count like the Umbreath stuff. We already talked about that. One fun one would be those undead pirates that put into Total War. I would love to see undead pirates.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, that would be fantastic.
riding like the
Actually.
dead crustaceans and stuff. That was so cool.
With like the giant crab and like with
Yeah.
the big ship on its back and the can. Yeah, absolutely.
And that would be like a much more natural enemy for the Idoneth too, because right now, like to be fair, the Idoneth have it real easy. Like nothing can go down to the bottom of the ocean realistically to fight them, right? So they don't have
Actually,
any
there's some really
ability.
good stories where zombies are down there and skeletons.
Exactly. That's the only thing that can really do that. It's like
Yeah.
so that would be great, and that has already been hugely successful. And everyone's ever played a Warhammer Total War game, like that was like the most fun like faction to play, and it just
Absolutely.
worked. It just worked. So I would love to see that. Other kind of neat one that'd be kind of cool if we did see would be maybe a new Destruction faction or Sylvaneth faction. I guess do a two for there, but like either like the Krenathi or the Centaur people, like and like good centaurs, or
Sure.
big destruction centaurs where poor Kragnos finally finds like where all the Drogrook went to and they didn't die, and you can play them now or something.
Baby
That'd be cool. Yeah. So like either big stompy centaurs or like deer like wood centaurs, but centaurs.
That'd be
Definitely
cool.
more not enough centaurs in the game.
No, not enough.
Really not hitting our centaur quotas.
I know. We've
Lack
got
of
Centigore.
necessary horse people. Yeah.
I think Centigore are the only ones, right?
Pretty much. I
Yeah.
mean, dragon
Well-
ogres are kind of centaurs.
No, they're dragon ogres. Nothing takes away the ogre from
see.
the dragon or the dragon from the ogre.
I see.
They are one.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's true. I mean, if we think of it as a quick, we're really far afield today, but hey guys, this is an end of the year episode, so what do you expect?
Yeah.
Centaur things, which we're trying to figure out our centaur survey, which is basically like one official thing and a couple weird cryptids. We did
Well, and
have-
Laukavai, right?
Yeah.
You got Laukavai.
There's
Yeah.
always the ever dreaded reverse centaur, which is just horse head human legs, right?
running around
Yes,
naked all the time.
The reverse centaur.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah,
oh
horse
my
head
God.
and neck, and then straight onto human legs. There's no torso,
That
no
would be-
hands.
So funny. It'd just be like a bunch of BoJack Horsemans running around.
Yeah.
But wait, let's see. So yeah, so there's a Centaur. We know they exist. There's
Right.
Kragnos because he's like a big centaur. Without
Yeah.
to put it. There's that one single centaur in like the war band that's supposed to be a Krenathi that came out a
Mhm.
while ago.
Yep.
Yep. And I guess that's it.
Laukavai and the Vengorian lords are technically bat centaurs.
They're centaur-ish. They're centaur
like-
adjacent.
Squished together things, but yeah, I mean, there's Laukavai. If we're gonna count Laukavai, we do have to count the Dragon Ogres for sure because they're also like quadruped lower, biped
Okay,
top.
then, well, by all metrics, I own all these models. So, Games Workshop, you're tapping into a certain, need for me. So, if you release it, I'll buy it.
All right, well
Uh,
that's good. That's good.
There's that one for Chaos, the Centurion Marshal, or
Yeah, that's true. The
I
Centaurian
also have
Marshal.
that one.
That's
Yes.
I
yeah.
have that model as well. I should have thought of that one. All right, good, good. All right.
Um,
Oh man.
uh, on a different note, I'd like to see new Skaven models. I don't have any plans or need to play Skaven, but I got to play against Skaven recently, and they need new models.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
painful.
that's
It's
fair. It's
very
such a fun
painful.
army too.
I over the course of the year, I have assembled all mine, and I realize I probably have more Skaven than anything else,
Yeah.
which it literally is an infestation. And half of those models are just metal, which glory be to the old days
Yeah,
of
yeah.
metal. But oh my goodness, are they no fun anymore? And
Yeah.
Well,
then the I think if there's anything that holds that army back, it's just collecting it is the most painful thing.
sure.
So yeah, I'd love to see New Skaven.
Well, and they're an army that's got really good Warhammer flavor, right? That's sort of unique to Warhammer,
hmm
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so in terms of like developing your own IP and making something that's not just another fantasy trope, like I feel like there's a lot of design space still in the Skaven wheelhouse, no pun intended.
Now,
Uh,
alternatively, if we really wanted to get Games Workshop IP centric, we could go way old school and also check that box of centaurs and just bring back Zotes as an army.
Zotes? Were Zotes?
Just all Zotes.
I thought Zotes were 40K, but were Zotes fantasy as well?
They
Yeah,
were
Zotes
fantasy.
originally started as fantasy.
What? Oh, okay. Wow. Didn't know that.
And there was, and here's a little bit of lore knowledge because
Ooh,
I spend far too much time in this stuff. So the owner of Games Workshop in the way back when it was
a
primarily
long time
role
ago.
playing games,
Okay.
um, wanted to have an individual IP. And so he actually forced the design studio to come up with something new, or they could go with what he came up with, which was Zotes. And so Zotes were by far the most maligned thing in the design studio for quite some time. Um, and so that's how they came up with Famir. Is
Okay.
Famir were their
Oh.
answer to okay, we can't have Zotes, and
And they
and
had
because
Zotes anyway.
yep, and because Games Workshop was mirroring 40K to fantasy, we saw like Beastman Imperial Guard, yada 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 yada, right?
Yeah.
Way back when, Zotes were that direct transfer over.
Okay.
Famir were the ones that didn't make it over to 40K to my knowledge, but that's how Zotes have permeated the background all over. Is
There we go.
the owner of the company said, you know what? We need to do something unique. Zotes.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
this has been Lore Corner with Matt.
Yes, there you
that's
go.
true.
Here's the useless knowledge I have.
Well, we'll have to see, guys. What happens when one of us is either right or none of us are right this year? Should we do something fun for that? What does the winner get if someone's so spot on that
Well,
they win?
Jack, here's what I predict
Yeah.
is that we will have in about 360-ish days, we'll record an episode of our 2024 year wrap-ups, and no one will have gone back to this episode to listen what our predictions were.
Oh, I'll pose a challenge to anybody who made it this far.
Yeah.
Discord people can pick a model of their choosing and the painter of their choosing. And if you've gotten your prediction correct, we will paint that model for you.
Ooh,
Oh,
I
that's
like
very
that.
nice.
That's very exciting.
Nobody
But
can see
only-
it, but I'm making my eyebrows go up and down really
Yeah.
quickly, like very happy caterpillars.
But only if it's Carlina von Karstein. That's
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Subset of one. Miles, your prediction is already pretty eerily accurate. I think we know that's going to happen.
So it may just be Miles painting his own model for himself.
Yeah. We'll give a golf clap when the time comes. In 1 year.
Exactly. Thank you.
Oh man.
Sounds good. I think it's a good. We've come to a good place.
Exactly.
Yes. The end of the year, ready for a new one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Again, thanks to everybody who's listened to us, joining the podcast this year. Been a tremendous year for Always Strikes Last, and for me, I think for Matt and Jack as well.
Mhm.
And thanks for sharing that with us, and hope for a great 2024.
Absolutely. See you guys all in the new year, and don't forget to like and subscribe and do all the things and make your dog subscribe and whoever else is in the connection.
We exclusively need to increase our number of dog subscribers. So
Yeah.
that's actually one of the boxes you have to check in your YouTube metrics in order to get sponsorship. So number of dog subscribers is actually really, so it's not just like a offhand joke from Jack. We really need to double down on that.
It's true.
It
And
is
I
a
actually,
problem.
yeah, I
I keep
especially like
telling-
keep going with that.
I keep telling Marty, my dog, to subscribe, but he's like, I listen to this as you record it. I have no need.
He doesn't get the other 2/3 of it.
Yeah.
I especially like dogs in our subscriber base because they get the jokes I make, which are too low tone for humans to hear.
Well, thanks everyone for an amazing year, and look forward to many more. And this is Always Strikes Last, with Matt having the last word of the year.
You got it, Matt.
Damn it, Jack.